After losing my husband, life with my son Noah settled into a quiet routine of grief and survival, until everything changed. What began as small moments of reconnection quickly spiraled into the unexpected. Late-night conversations, lingering glances, and unspoken emotions navigating a difficult emotional distance between us. Was it just grief playing tricks on us? Or had we faced emotional confusion that challenged us deeply? This is the story I've been afraid to tell. The one that keeps me awake at night, and you won't believe how it ends. Stay with me, this is a story you need to hear. It's been a year since I lost James. A whole year since that rainy afternoon when the phone rang and everything changed. The love of my life gone in an instant. Our home, once filled with warmth and laughter, has grown quiet. Almost unbearably so. It's just Noah and me now, and honestly, I'm not sure if I'm enough for him. Noah used to be so full of life, always joking, always bringing a spark to every room. But after James's accident, something inside him changed. Changed, I suppose. Both of us. He became distant, shutting himself in his room or disappearing for hours. He barely looks at me anymore, and when he does speak, his words are short, clipped, empty of the boy I once knew. I know grief has no guidebook and we all process loss differently, but watching Noah drift further away has been one of the most painful parts of this year. It's like I lost both of them, James and Noah, on the same day. First, I didn't know. What should I do? I thought giving him space would help, but the silence is unbearable. I started with small gestures to show I'm still here. Cooking his favorite chicken pot pie, leaving notes like, "I'm proud of you," or, "I'm here if you want to talk." But they went unread. I'd knock on his door, inviting him for dinner or a movie, but the answer was always the same: busy. I stopped knocking. It wasn't just Noah who had changed, I had too. Nights spent in the living room, tears streaming as I stared at James's empty chair, questioning why this happened to us. I gazed out the window, wishing the trees would lift the weight on my heart. Drowning, I felt lost, unsure how to bring Noah and myself back to the surface. Then there were the whispers, those haunting late nights when I'd hear James's voice echoed in my mind. "You're the strong one, Laura." His warm hand over mine, urging me to hold it all together. But I wasn't strong. Cracks were everywhere. I threw myself into motherhood, the only thing left to cling to. I cleaned, cooked, and pretended everything was fine. Our cozy farmhouse looked perfect, fresh bread baking, candles flickering. But inside I was crumbling and Noah was slipping away. Every time I caught a glimpse of him, hunched shoulders, distant eyes barely meeting mine, I felt the loss wash over me. Late at night, in the quiet of the house, I wondered if we'd spend our lives as strangers. Little did I know that aching loneliness was on the brink of shattering. And then one evening, a small yet unexpected moment changed everything. As I scrubbed stubborn dinner remnants off a pan in the kitchen, lost in thought, the hum of the old refrigerator and running water were my only companions. Another night blurred together since James passed. Suddenly, Noah's voice broke the silence. "Need any help, Mom?" I nearly dropped the pan, spinning around, wiping my hands on a dish towel, half expecting it was just my imagination. Noah stood there, hands in pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, as if pulled by an invisible force. His voice was soft, almost unsure, but it was him, talking to me voluntarily. I couldn't hide my surprise. "Sure, you can dry," I said, handing him a towel. For a while we worked side by side in silence. It wasn't the heavy silence that had filled the house for months. It felt lighter, more normal. I glanced at him from the corner of my eye, noticing the way his hair had grown longer, and he moved more deliberately, almost cautiously, like he was testing the waters. "How was school today?" I asked, breaking the silence. "Fine," he replied, not looking up. Just one word, no elaboration. I wanted to dig deeper, to ask about his classes, his friends, anything to spark a conversation, but I held back. This was the most time we'd spent together in months, and I didn't want to ruin it. "If you ever want to talk, I'm here," I said gently, keeping my tone light. Noah nodded, his eyes still downcast. He didn't say a word while drying the plate, but his body language spoke volumes. Over the next few days, I noticed subtle shifts. Noah lingered in the living room while I watched TV, settling at the far end of the couch. He began offering to help with small tasks, folding laundry, taking out the trash, even lending a hand in the garden. But it wasn't just the chores, he started talking to me again. First, it was just brief comments about his classes, Something funny a friend said felt like a lifeline pulling me closer to the son I thought I'd lost. Then came the night he cooked dinner. I was at the kitchen table flipping through an old magazine when Noah walked in with a bowl of pasta. "I made this," he said, setting it down in front of me. "You cooked?" I asked, surprised. He shrugged, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "A friend taught me. I figured I'd give it a try." The pasta was simple spaghetti with marinara sauce, but it was perfect. Jack looked up at me, his expression serious. "Thanks, Mom," he said suddenly. I was startled. "For what?" "For everything," he replied, his voice steady, eyes locking with mine, making my chest tighten. I laughed awkwardly, brushing it off. "You're welcome, Noah." But later that night, as I lay in bed, his words echoed in my mind. Something had shifted between us. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but the air felt heavier, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't sure if I wanted to know where this was heading. In the days after Noah's quiet thank you, everything felt different. Neither good nor bad, just a strange shift I couldn't quite identify. It hung in the air like a shadow, elusive and nagging. I convinced myself it was just my imagination, a byproduct of reconnecting with my son after months of silence. Yet that feeling lingered, gnawing at my thoughts. It began with small things. Noah started appearing wherever I was. If I was in the garden pruning the roses, there he was. He'd wander outside, sitting on the porch steps, silently watching me. When I cooked, he'd stand in the doorway, offering help or just chatting. First, I thought it was sweet, Noah trying to reconnect. But the unnoticeable concern in his gaze as I moved around the kitchen or bent over the flower beds felt different. I brushed it off. It was just Noah being attentive, right? Then came the compliments. "You look nice today, Mom," he said one morning as I rinsed dishes. I turned to him, startled. "Thanks, sweetheart," I said, keeping my voice light. But his gaze lingered a second too long, tightening my stomach in an unfamiliar way. That evening, we were watching a comedy we'd seen a dozen times. Easy and familiar. Yet, as the movie played, I noticed Noah had shifted closer, our shoulders nearly touching. I glanced at him. He wasn't even watching the screen. His focus was entirely on me. "You're always so busy," he said. "You do too much," he said, breaking the silence. I blinked, caught off guard. "That's what moms do, Noah," I replied with a small laugh. His voice was firm, his gaze unwavering. "You deserve a break." His words sent a strange shiver down my spine. "That's sweet of you." I brushed it off, but I couldn't shake the intensity in his eyes. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't sleep as my mind replayed moments from the past few days. Days passed, each one fueling the unease in my chest. Was I imagining things? Was Noah just being kind, trying to bridge the gap between us? Or was there something more lurking beneath the surface? Over the next few days, his behavior only added to my confusion. He found reasons to be near me constantly. If I was folding laundry, he'd slip into the room, sitting on the edge of the bed, striking up a conversation. "You make this house feel alive," he said one afternoon, his voice lingering in the air. Soft and almost reverent, I froze, hands resting on the pile of freshly folded clothes. "Thank you, Noah," I replied, forcing a smile, but my chest tightened. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it, that this was just a son trying to reconnect with his mother. But the way he looked at me, his comments showing deeper appreciation for our bond, made it harder to believe. And then there was me watching him too, studying his face, his movements, the way his eyes lit up when he spoke, and suddenly, a flood of bittersweet emotion rushed through me. An unfamiliar sensation that both comforted and terrified. I brushed it off as grief and loneliness, convincing myself it meant nothing. But deep down I sensed a shift between us, an undeniable tension that intensified daily. That night began like any other. I had just folded laundry and retreated to my bedroom, hoping to escape into a book. The air was cool, and the rhythmic hum of the ceiling fan was soothing. A brief escape where I could finally exhale and let the day's weight melt away. But that peace shattered with a soft knock on my bedroom door. "Mom!" Noah's voice was low and hesitant. My heart quickened. It was late, far later than usual. "Yes, what is it?" I asked. "Can I come in?" His voice felt different. Gone was the playful tone of his youth, replaced by something heavy, almost fragile. Noah hesitated, glancing at the clock. "It's late. Is something wrong?" I asked. I just need to talk, he replied, his voice heavy. Against my better judgment, I set my book aside and called out, "Come in." The door creaked open and Noah stepped inside, looking smaller, vulnerable. His hands were stuffed in his pockets, shoulders hunched as if bearing the weight of the world. He lingered near the doorway, not moving closer. "What's on your mind?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. Lightness faded as unease gripped my chest. He hesitated, eyes glued to the floor, then finally met my gaze with an intensity that stole my breath. "I don't know how to say this," he started, voice trembling. "But I've been feeling different about us." My heart raced. "Different how?" I pressed. Noah stepped closer, slow and deliberate. "Ever since Dad died, you've been everything to me," he said, voice breaking. "You've held everything together. You've been so strong." Incredible tears welled in his eyes, and my throat tightened. "Noah, I'm your mother, that's my job," I said softly, my voice wavering. "I know," he replied quickly, desperation in his tone. "But it's more than that. I can't stop thinking about you, Mom. How much I care for you. It's not just as a son. I know it's wrong, but I can't help it." His words hit me like a physical blow. My mind raced, trying to process what he just said. I stared at him, breath caught in my throat. "Noah," I began, my voice shaky, "what you're feeling, it's not real. It's grief, confusion, loneliness. We've been through so much, and it's spilling out in ways that don't make sense." He shook his head, tears streaming down his face. "You don't understand. I've tried to ignore it, to push it away, but it's always there. You're everything to me, Mom." I instinctively placed a hand on his shoulder. His body trembled. "Noah, listen to me," I said firmly, my voice breaking. "I love you, but not like this. I can't love you like this. This has to stop." He nodded, but his expression screamed doubt. "I'm sorry," he whispered, barely audible. "I didn't mean to make things weird." My heart ached at his brokenness. "We'll get through this," I said softly, trying to reassure him. "But we need to set boundaries." He wiped his eyes and nodded, shoulders slumping in defeat. "Good night, Mom," he said quietly before turning to leave. As the door clicked shut, I let out a shaky breath, hands trembling, sitting in the silence, replaying his words in my head. A part of me wanted to believe it was over, that his confession marked the end. But deep down I knew better. This wasn't over, not yet. The night unraveled like so many others, heavy with the stillness that had settled over the house since James's death. I went to bed early, hoping to escape my restless thoughts, but even in my room, Noah's confession haunted me, swirling in a loop I couldn't break. I handled it right, set my boundaries, drew a line in the sand. But the way he looked at me, the raw pain and longing in his eyes, stayed with me. A week had passed since that night. Noah kept his distance, yet the tension was palpable, tightening my chest whenever we crossed paths. That night sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the soft hum of the fan doing little to soothe my nerves. Just as I began to drift off, I heard it again. A soft knock at my door. Noah's voice was barely a whisper. I sat up, my heart sinking. "Not again," I thought. "It's late," I said firmly, though my hands trembled. "Please," he urged. "I need to talk." Torn between sending him away and facing the storm, I sighed and called out, "Come in." The door creaked open. Noah stepped inside, shoulders hunched, hands in pockets, looking even more vulnerable than before, like a boy lost in the woods. "What is it, Noah?" I asked, trying to keep my tone steady. He hesitated, glancing between me and the floor, then stepped closer. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice low and trembling, "about what I said." I tensed, gripping the blanket in my lap. "Noah, we already talked about this," I said gently. "I know," he interrupted, his voice breaking. "I know it's wrong. I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I can't stop." My breath caught in my throat. He was closer now, standing at the edge of the bed, his eyes filled with desperation. Something unnameable churned deep in my chest. "Noah, this isn't right," I whispered, my voice wavering. "You're my son. I love you." But he interrupted. "You feel it too." The room tilted, my pulse quickened. I stared at him, speechless, grappling with the truth. I hated myself for the way my chest tightened under his gaze. for the warmth igniting when, earlier that day, we crossed paths in the kitchen. This has to stop, I insisted, but my words echoed hollowly. Noah reached out, his hand trembling as it touched mine. I just need you, he said, his voice cracking. For a moment I didn't pull away. The silence was deafening. A fragile thread stretched to its breaking point. My breath quickened, my mind screamed to stop this before it went too far. But I didn't. I don't know what came over me. Overwhelmed by sorrow and loss, I struggled to maintain clear boundaries. It all faded as I let the thread snap. Noah leaned in, searching my eyes for permission. Every part of me knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop him. Tentative and soft, and in that instant, I forgot everything, who we were, where we were, the inevitable consequences. All that mattered was the warmth, the connection, the escape from the unbearable loneliness that had consumed me for so long. Noah's eyes held an unnameable emotion, leaving my chest feeling both hollow and full. Good night, Mom, he whispered, stepping back. I nodded, speechless, as he slipped out the door, leaving me alone with the storm inside. The silence settled in, and I knew there was no turning back. We experienced a moment of overwhelming emotion that left lasting confusion. The morning after felt like waking from a dream, where reality and fantasy blurred beyond recognition. Which is which? This wasn't a dream, it was painfully real. Noah was already in the kitchen when I came downstairs, humming softly as he brewed coffee. He looked different, lighter almost. There was an ease in his posture, a faint smile tugging at his lips. It starkly contrasted the tension and grief that had weighed him down for months. Good morning, Mom, he said cheerfully, setting a steaming mug of coffee in front of me. I froze, staring at him. How could he act so normal? My mind raced, still reeling from the chaos of emotions. Guilt, confusion, and something unnamed. I whispered my reply. My hands trembled as I lifted the mug to my lips. Noah sat across from me, his gaze lingering a beat too long. You look tired, he said, concern in his voice. I didn't sleep well, I admitted. He nodded, his expression softening. Me neither, he replied quietly. The air between us thickened with unspoken words, and I quickly looked away. Focusing on the coffee in my hands, the day slipped by in a strange haze. Noah busied himself, retreating to his room or working in the garden. I tried to keep up, scrubbing counters and vacuuming the living room, as if cleaning could wipe away the memories. But no matter how hard I worked, I couldn't shake the image of his face, the sound of his voice, the warmth of his touch. That night, as I lay in bed, the silence was unbearable. The same questions looped in my mind. How had we gotten here? How had I let this happen? Why wasn't I running away? The days that followed were a mix of relief and torment. Noah didn't mention it, didn't push, just went on with his life as if nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and we both felt it. I noticed it in the way his eyes lingered when we passed in the hallway, how he found excuses to be near me, offering to help with dinner, sitting beside me on the couch instead of at the other end like before. And then there were the moments when I found myself watching him from the kitchen window as he worked outside, studying his face when he wasn't looking. It felt like an invisible thread connected us, pulling us closer each day. I told myself it was just grief, that it didn't mean anything, but deep down I was lost in a whirlwind of emotions. Guilt clashed with something more dangerous, the part of me that didn't regret it. One evening, as the sun dipped, Noah joined me on the porch and we sat in silence, watching the sky shift to vibrant orange and pink. Thanks for being patient with me, Mom, he said softly, catching me off guard. Of course, Noah, I replied, forcing a smile. For everything. His eyes locked onto mine, and the weight of his words tightened my chest. I nodded, speechless, as the sun dipped behind the trees, leaving me to wonder if we were truly moving. We were either moving forward or teetering on the brink of something perilous, something neither of us wanted to face. That sunset stretched on, casting long shadows over the porch where Noah and I sat. The air, heavy with the scent of blooming flowers, felt anything but soothing. It highlighted how far we'd drifted from normalcy and how unstable our footing had become. Noah sat a bit too close, his knee brushing against mine now and then, but he didn't say a word. We pulled away, but the warmth of that small connection only fueled the chaos inside me. Silence stretched between us, pierced only by distant crickets and rustling leaves. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling exposed yet suffocated. Then Noah broke the quiet. "You've always been there for me," he said, his voice low and hesitant. I turned to him, my stomach tightening. I wouldn't name Noah at first, but the words caught in my throat. What could I say? That I understood? That I felt it too? "You don't have to say anything," he interrupted, his voice soft yet steady. "I just wanted you to know." His hand brushed against mine for a fleeting moment, and the electricity of that touch sent a shiver down my spine. I should have pulled away, should have said something, anything to stop this. But instead I gazed at the horizon, my thoughts racing. How did we get here? How did a heartbreaking emotional confusion clouded my judgment? Noah leaned back in his chair, relaxed like I hadn't seen in months. He looked at peace, as if the weight of the past year was finally lifting. But for me, that weight was heavier than ever, pressing down with every second. I wanted to believe we could move on, that this was just a moment of weakness from grief and loneliness. Deep down I knew better. This wasn't something we could sweep under the rug. I could ignore it, but I couldn't stop. "Thank you," Noah said, pulling me from my thoughts. I was startled by his patience, his understanding when I didn't deserve it. I nodded, swallowing hard. "Of course, Noah. I'll always be here for you." His smile was soft and genuine, making my heart ache. "You mean that, don't you?" "Yes," I whispered, the words slipping out as the last light of day faded into darkness, an inevitable weight settling over me. It wasn't just a fleeting moment. It was something bigger, something that scared and intrigued me. The real question wasn't if we could return to the past, but if I even wanted to. That final night, everything exploded. The tension, the stolen glances, the lingering moments. It all built up like a storm ready to strike. I told myself that if I could just keep my distance, if I could retreat to my room like before, a gentle yet hesitant, there was an undercurrent that made my chest tighten. I closed the book, heart racing. "Can I come in?" he asked. This was the moment I both dreaded and anticipated. I glanced at the clock. Well past midnight, the house silent. I should have said no, told him to go back to bed, but instead I whispered, "Come in." The door creaked open and Noah stepped inside, looking. He stood there, older and more confident, yet still holding that vulnerability that tugged at my heart. Near the doorway, hands in pockets, his gaze darted between me and the floor. "What's wrong?" I asked, already knowing. He stepped closer, movements deliberate. I couldn't sleep," he admitted. My pulse quickened. "Noah, we've talked about this." I started, trying to sound firm, but my voice wavered under the weight of my emotions. "I know," he interrupted. His voice was steady, determined, but I couldn't shake thoughts of Mom, of us. The air thickened with each word he spoke. I wanted to protest, to halt this before it spiraled, but the words failed me. "You're all I have," he continued, his voice quivering. "You're the only one who's ever been there for me. The only one who understands." I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. "Noah, this isn't right," I whispered. "Then why don't you stop me?" he asked, his tone soft yet piercing. The question lingered and I struggled to breathe, knowing the answer. I didn't stop him, I didn't want to. Noah sat nearby, seeking comfort as we both tried to cope with the grief. He reached out for support, tentative at first, then he held it, warm and steady. My heart raced as I met his gaze, my mind screaming to pull away, to end this. But I leaned in, closing the distance, and in that moment all my walls crumbled. The storm I had been holding back finally shattered, and there was no turning back. When the conversation ended, an unbearable silence returned, heavier than before. Noah sat at the edge of the bed, his back to me, shoulders slumped. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Yes," I replied, though my voice felt foreign. He paused in the doorway, then softly said, "Good night, Mom," before closing the door. I sat in the dim light, my thoughts a tangled mess of guilt, relief, and something unnamed. I knew what we had done was wrong. Consequences loomed whether we faced them or not. In that moment, all I felt was a heavy silence. Now, as I write, I question whether to halt this before it escalates. Are we just two people trying to fill a void left by someone we loved? Is it as wrong as it seems, or more common than I realize? I don't have the answers, and maybe I don't want them. But I need to share this story, hoping someone else can help me make sense of what I can't. Life's a whirlwind, and grief complicates everything. Loneliness and loss can warp our reality, especially when we're vulnerable. It's easy to misread emotions and seek comfort in unexpected places. But amidst the pain, we must respect boundaries, for ourselves and others. This story serves as a reminder. Emotional wounds need time and space to heal, not shortcuts. Craving connection is natural. Connection is vital, especially when isolation creeps in. But leaning too much on one person can blur the line between support and dependency. We must stay aware of this, even in our most desperate moments. In a world where disconnection is rampant, grief and loneliness can feel overwhelming. Yet, reaching out to friends, family, or professionals can be a lifeline. True healing comes from facing our emotions, not avoiding them or trying to fill the emptiness. Struggling? Don't go it alone. Talk to someone you trust. Allow yourself to grieve and discover healthy ways to rebuild. You deserve to heal, but remember, healing won't come from breaking yourself further.